President Obama says he's willing to work with Republicans to keep the country from going over that fiscal cliff, but there are conditions. In an interview on CBS News, the president said he'd cut some programs, but there would have to be tax hikes, period.
Keep in mind that the $1 trillion that we cut, was a painful exercise. There are some programs that are worthy, but we just can't afford right now. And I'm willing to do more on that front. We have an obligation to make sure government works, and there's still waste there. There's still programs that don't work. There are still ways that we can make it leaner and more efficient. So I'm, more than happy to work with the Republicans. And what I've said is, in reducing our deficits, we can make sure that we cut $2.50 for every dollar of increased revenue.
That's the deal they turned down, Mr. President.
Well, and that's part of what this election's about.
Let's get reaction now from the other side. House Majority Whip, California Congressman Kevin McCarthy. And, sir, good morning to you. And welcome back to America's Newsroom. I'm more than happy to work with Republicans. What do you think of that when you heard that?
Look, we've heard that many times before, but then it seems to just be rhetoric. But as Republicans, we're more than willing to work with this president. We have tried. From the minute he came in, we invited him from the very beginning to our conference. We laid out where we could agree to do something different economically. We actually wrote a plan and handed it to him, and he just followed Nancy Pelosi. We have been trying to work with this president, and we want to work with this president. But you have to be serious. You can't keep adding to the debt. First thing, you got to pass a budget, and you got to create an economic policy that puts people back to work. It can't be the same old rhetoric just for campaign purposes.
Well, I know on the House Republican side, you back it up with a budget that was passed, and you bang on Senate Democrats a lot because you haven't seen a budget out of the Senate for more than 3 years. Here is Paul Ryan striking a similar note. Listen here.
Well, I have been more than happy to work with him, but he hasn't been acting like that. What we've learned in this presidency, he says one thing and does another.
Is that the case?
That has been the case all along, and there's a lot of broken promises. He says one thing, and then you look at even his policy. You like your health care, be able to keep it. We know that's not true now. And it's not just Republicans he needs to work with. He needs to work with his own party. His own budget that he produced hasn't even got a Democrat to vote for it yet. Let alone the Democrats in the Senate haven't even produced one. That's how far back they are. We believe we have a responsibility, number one, to pass a budget, and that's what the House Republicans have done. The Senate should pass one as well, and then let's come together and find where we agree, and let's work together to put this country back on the right path.
What did you make of his comment about cutting $2.50 in spending for every dollar of revenue brought into the government?
Look, first, I look at the overall policy. What puts us economically back to work? I mean, there's so many tax policy there that actually harms us to be competitive worldwide. From reconciliation, you look at the corporate tax rate and others. What puts people back to work? First, let's look at policy and stop looking at politics. He's making this whole campaign, and everything that he does is about campaign. Let's put people before politics.
Examine this for a moment.
Sure.
The president wins in early November. The fiscal cliff is still out there because there doesn't appear to be much movement on a deal until after the election, perhaps before the first of the year. What happens to that fiscal cliff?
Well, hopefully we don't hit that fiscal cliff. We've seen what can happen with it. That's why the House has passed different versions. We have a couple things going to go a deadline regardless of who wins. You have sequestration. You have the tax increases looming before us. Those all have to be done. Now, people are trying to hold till after the election. The House has actually passed items that deal with them, send them over to the Senate. We should deal with it so the American public can see what happens. I think we should not increase the taxes, extend them for a year, and reform our tax code.
Well, but to be clear,
without expanding.
There are no active negotiations among both parties, are there?
Well, listen to what the White House said months ago. They said months ago that they were done working with Congress. They wanted to get out on the campaign trail. His own press person said that after we went through the last phase. That was months ago. We want to work together. We say, we're back, have the president come back, and we can start working, and so nobody has this uncertainty or looming cliff before us.
Let me turn the argument around. If Governor Romney wins in November, what happens then?
I think if Governor Romney wins, you have a new day, because you have both sides sitting down, and here's an opportunity. Here's somebody that was governor before that had to work with the other side, came from a Democratic state, had to work with both sides, that one, we stop the tax increase, we stop the sequestration, we extend that for a year, and then we sit down and we reform government. We blow up the boxes that the president has talked about. There's agreement there. And then we also create a tax system that lets America compete, lets us move forward, and is a fair one, closes loopholes, shrinks it, broadens it, and well,
understand
we have an
the policy.
new day.
I understand the policy argument you're making there, but if Governor Romney wins, would you support doing no deal until he is sworn into office, which would essentially mean a 3-month punt or a 6-month punt into 2013 on those big issues?
Look, the thing I would think is best, make sure we don't hit the cliff. So what can we extend for a year? And we've done this in the House, where we extend the tax cuts for a year and say we'll only do that for a year if you reform the entire tax code and lay out a framework to do it so people can start putting that work to work. And the other thing, if you have a brand new president, let him lay out his agenda of where he wants to go.
Kevin McCarthy, thank you. These are big issues, and it's going to be a very busy fall, even after the election into the new year. Appreciate your time. We'll call on you often and get your perspective. Thank you, sir.